Hi everybody, and welcome to Traveling with Russell, and welcome to Australia, and welcome to Perth, which is the capital city of Western Australia. And I'm here finally to do a supermarket tour. It's right behind me. We're going to head on in and check it out together. So the supermarket we're going to go and see is called Coles. Now in Australia there is only a few different brands of supermarkets, and actually between Coles and Woolworths they have around about 75% of the market share of supermarket or grocery shopping. Now this is quite interesting because it's actually the store that I worked at while I was living here in Australia, and I thought I'd just show you some of the differences if I can find some. Electric gates to go inside and have a walk around and have a look at what they've got and just how big the supermarkets are here. And these are full line supermarkets, very different from Russia where they've got a lot more smaller suburban stores. And probably the most interesting difference is the fact that people use shopping trolleys as their main way to shop in supermarkets. And you won't see anybody with baskets, although they do have shopping baskets or hand baskets. You don't see people using them like you would see them in Russia. Over here some flowers. Now I'm not going to point out prices because it's very difficult to do a comparison, of course. I know everybody would like me to show prices. So the basic layout when you come in, everybody picks up a basket and they go up and down all the aisles and they pay and leave. So in this main entrance here, there is things like a bakery, there is meats, hams, salamis, and then fruits and vegetables, of course bananas. Now I guess depending on where you're watching from, how you would determine the exchange rate is up to you. Now for $1 Australian, you're getting about 53 rubles right now, if that's an easy way to figure it out. Now they do have some in-house bakery goods here, and they're using these speed ovens that you can see at the back, and a lot of the bread is what they call par baked. So it's not baked in the store full line, they're doing partial baking of it and then it's put out for sale. Croissants, but they do have different types of crusty breads and pretty much everything you still need. Some donuts. Now what I'll do is I'll do one walk around the shop so you can at least understand what you're seeing and just how spacious it is. Now if you're watching my videos from Russia, people always comment, where are the shoppers? There's nobody in the store, and this is the same here in Australia. And this is a Tuesday afternoon that I'm here. So it is actually school holidays in Australia right now. So there is a lot of people in the shopping centre, but people aren't necessarily coming supermarket shopping. Roast chickens, roast pork as well, which is really nice. So they do have some deli hams, olives. So this is by weight, and you just let them know what size and what weight you like. But how much room is there in the store? From the time that I was here, it doesn't feel as spacious. A little bit of chickens, West Australian king prawns. A lot of people call them shrimps around the world, but prawns. And this is an Australian supermarket. Now, this would be very comparable, I would say, in Russia to Globus or Ashan. The only difference being that this is only grocery items. There is no non-food items in here. Olives, crackers. There's some more meats over here. I just wanted to show you the cheese on this side. I guess they've got some nice cheeses, mostly Australian cheeses. Australia is very well known for cheese production. And They actually have the price per kilo on the signs, but then obviously you're buying a smaller packaging. You're not buying $60 pieces of cheese. It's just a little bit smaller, and then on the back, $9.50 right there. So yeah, what do you think so far? All of the traditional fruits and vegetables in the front over here. There's some pay-by-weight candy as well, and also nuts. So this is very similar to what they've got in Russia, where you can scoop the weight of the nuts. They've also got some pre-packaged one as well. And then what my wife wanted to get was macadamias. They have some normal nuts, I guess you would call it. So all of the leaf vegetables on this side, and then the traditional fruits and veg over here. Potatoes, tomatoes. I think a lot of things are fairly normal. The one difference in Australia, they have a scale so you can actually just get a guide of what the weight of something is, but you take it to the register and they weigh it for you at the time of purchase. Versus in Russia, you actually weigh your own items and put the sticker on and then pay for it at the register as you normally would. Lots of types of mandarins. The one thing also, there's a lot of pre-packed fruits and vegetables. So ultimately there's a lot of wasted packaging with all this netting and plastic and cardboard. And it might look nicer, but there's a lot of waste created. Even something like the bananas here in a plastic bag. You know, this is, okay, it can be recycled, but it just creates a lot of waste. If you've come across this video for the first time on my channel, I'm an Australian who actually lives in Moscow. I'm actually here in Australia just for 5 days. I've literally done a flying visit to come back here, and I thought I'd do a few videos. I've got some other things that I need to do, visit family. I will be back in Moscow on the 15th of July, so I think pretty much a week from now I'll be back in Russia. So I hope you enjoy this video of a typical Australian supermarket. They have a section here with pâtés, and quite interestingly they put all of the chips up the top as well, so you can do chips and dip. And then the meat section, plenty of choices. I will say Australian meat is very expensive, considering we do have a very big agricultural industry. The cost of things like lamb and beef is quite high compared to the cost of living. Things like chicken is cheaper. And then if you're lucky, you can get something on a markdown where there's a lower price depending on the time of day that you come in. Now, most Australians that come supermarket shopping will buy their meats from the supermarket as well. Whereas in Russia, for instance, we'll very typically go to butchers and buy meats rather than buying them in the supermarket. So this is a very normal thing to come and buy your meats in a store like this and try and find something for dinner tonight. I'm not sure if I'll end up going up and down all the aisles in the store. I'll do as much as I can. Pizza bases and wraps. And of course we saw the bread at the beginning of the video. And then this is the more normal way that everybody buys bread. It's packaged, it comes from bakeries that are here in the suburbs of Perth. And it gets delivered every morning before the shop opens and gets put out on the shelves. And once it's sold through, there isn't more bread until tomorrow then. But a typical loaf of bread is $5 Australian. So 260 rubles if you're in Russia, if you want a very normal loaf. Now, the one thing also in Australia, the loaves of bread are full-size loaves of bread, whereas in Russia, most of them are half loaves. And I think it's better with the half loaf. Obviously, it's a lower price, and then also you tend to eat it, and it's not wasted just as much. This aisle here has some of the health-related products, so gluten-free food. Also these different types of protein bars and shakes and things like that. these biscuits. And then above everything as you walk around, they do actually have signage. Muesli bars, lunchbox are the bars that you would put in the lunchbox for kids to take to school as well. I think most people know muesli bars around the world, but there's a quarter of the aisle of them. Being that actually it is the school holidays here in Perth right now, and for the last 4 days that we've been here, it's rained every day, and literally everywhere we've driven, I've had the windscreen wipers on, and it's been not great weather. People on school holidays will bring the kids to the shopping centre and do things like going to the cinemas or the play centres here, because it's not enjoyable weather to be outside. So the actual shopping centre itself is very busy, and even the car park took about 20 minutes to find a space. And here in the supermarket, it's actually quite empty. Above all of the aisles, they've actually got the information about what's in the aisle that you can buy, and it goes the whole way down the shopping centre. And then here on the wall, they've also got a directory which tells you in alphabetical order where everything is. So if you want, let's say, coffee, it's in aisle 2. Birdseed is in aisle 13. So you've got a nice, easy way to figure out where things are if you're tired of wandering up and down the aisles. This is the aisle with long life milk. And then over here, muesli and cereal. I don't think there's even that much porridge. I think the oats over here would be the extent of porridge in Russia. Over on this side, the tea and coffee aisle. So this is where it differs a lot from Russia. There is a lot less teas and coffees. I mean, it's only a few bays of the shop that's taken up by teas, and the same with coffee as well further down. So there's not a large selection of tea and coffee in Australia. But then if you want cereals, you have the whole aisle to choose from on this side, and all of these boxed cereals, very sugary things at the same time. But I think quite a lot of brands of coffee here are quite similar to Russia. There's Lavazza right there, and then Law as well. Of course, Starbucks, they've got the pods, and they've got these different sachet coffees here, or instant coffees, all the different types of jarred coffee. I think Nescafe is everywhere in the world. You can't get away from it. There is actually 2 aisles of snacks, biscuits, candy, and lollies as well. Now I'm going to try and do as much as I can and show you things. I don't really need to go down every aisle. I will, however, show you how they've got the sodas and drinks. And in Australia, you buy them in cases or in packs. So there's these fridge packs, which are a pack of 10, and you can tear the front open and then sit it in your fridge. And then they've got these larger packs here, which are in packs with 24 or 30. So you'll see they run the whole aisle here, plenty of different choices. So you get this slab or pack of cool drinks. So this whole side here is all the different fizzy drinks, of course different sizes of packaging. And on this other side is things like juices, sports drinks, and then the very small amount of water. And I'm going to say very typically in Australia, people aren't drinking bottled water like we do in Russia and in other countries. And I'm curious where you live. Let me know in the comments, do you drink bottled water? And it would not be as common to come in here and buy it like this. They do have some of the flavored waters right here, of course. And you can get these packs of the small bottles, which is what we generally do. And then we'd have them in the car then when we go out for the day. Pellegrino if you need Italian water, or the bubbly water, we call it in Russia. or gassy water. You actually ask for water either with gas or without gas, which is quite a different way to do it. And of course, Bundaberg ginger beer, which I've been able to find in Russia very easily in all sorts of different stores. Also Bickford's you can buy in Russia as well. And then they've even got some non-alcoholic wine right here, which I'm always surprised if anybody is buying that in the supermarket. Energy drinks. And I think this is a good example of a difference between Russia and Australia. Energy drinks are a big deal in Russia, and then here in Australia there's only 2 or 3 shelves of different choices, so there's not that many to pick from. You also can get them in 4 packs as well. Powerade and Gatorade. And of course, Coca-Cola. I've talked about it in a lot of videos. So there is some house colas here, which I think is the brand of the supermarket. $1.30. And then of course, traditional Coca-Cola in all the different sizes. This is actually bottled in Perth. Actually, the factory for this is only about 20 minutes away from where this shopping center is. So back when I was living here in Australia, I was working alongside Debbie here, and she's very, very famous in this supermarket.
I'm not.
No.
No.
And she loves working here.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But that's what really made, I think, me working here as well more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So if you're ever at this particular Coles, if you can find it, then have a look for Debbie and say hello if you can find her somewhere. When I was working here, I was coming to this shop 4 or 5 days a week and doing work for a third-party company for Coles. So, of course, some of the staff I know very well. They've worked here for a lot of years, well before I started working here. There's some Mexican items, and I think this might be the international aisle or Asian pantry, they're calling it. There's a little bit of a mix of things depending on what you want. And have a look over here from Indonesia, Indomie noodles. These are some of the different packet pastas. Just put it with water. So on this side, all of the rice and pasta, and then over here, more of the Asian items from different countries, really. So it's a bit of a mix of places that it all comes from. Really interestingly, depending on the location of this Coles supermarket, the amount of space given up to this Asian section is larger or smaller, depending on the actual demographic of people living in the area. Now, I know for this region in Perth that this area is much larger, literally spans the whole aisle on this left-hand side, whereas in my local Coles where I live, or was living in Perth, much less. Pasta sauces, so a lot of jarred pasta sauces, and then different choices of pasta brands. Of course, in Russia, Barilla, so 140 rubles for a pack of Barilla. And then the home brand one, actually this is San Remo. This is a home brand version over here. You can get for 53 rubles for 1 pack. So they've got on the signage here this everyday pricing. So you've got this $1 section, and the supermarkets are very keen to let you know that the prices don't always change. Now, if you look at the shelves, the things that do change on a weekly or fortnightly basis are the things that have got the yellow stickers over the top of the regular price tickets. So what will happen is once a week on a Wednesday, the prices change. Then you've got weekly specials. Then when you want to come back shopping again, something else will be on special and something will come off special. I really hope this is an interesting video. I am hoping that I can do 3 different videos while I'm in Perth, and hopefully I can get them on the channel. So if you've seen this one and there isn't another one, I wasn't able to do it. There is a lot of laws and rules in Australia about filming in a public place or in a business or shopping center because it's private property, and technically it's considered trespassing, and technically you can't film in public places like this, which is a polar opposite to what it is in Russia. When I was working here, the milk fridges were actually open, similar to how they've got the meats. They've now put glass doors on all of them here, so it's more energy efficient. They've even got stickers to let you know that as well. So you just need to open the door to grab something out. Now, the one thing they have also here is bigger bottles of milk, so they've got milk up to 3 litres. Now, you do need a bigger fridge for that. That's the only downfall. Now, we have a few more aisles to get through, and at least if we can just have a bit of a look up and down a few of them, you can get an idea. Canned tuna and canned fish. Now, there isn't nearly the amount of canned fish products here in Australia than there is in Russia or in Europe, if you want to be more general. There's some canned ham. Spam is very famous, I think, for some other countries. Canned tomatoes. The one thing here you'll see also is a lot of stuff canned. And in Russia, it's a very small amount of products if you were to compare like for like. Okay, canned corn we know about. When we come over to the oil, there's canned spaghetti. And then plenty of oil. So cobram, I have seen this in Russia as well. So despite all of the challenges in the world, there is still products that are exported, and they do reach Russia. How about some macadamia oil or walnut oil? This is quite interesting. And then how small the actual oil section is. It is literally just 2 bays, whereas in Russia it would be most of the rest of the aisle that it would take up. You've even got spray oil right here. And then all of the spices, and then ketchups and sauces. So yeah, plenty of choices of food. It's just a matter of what you want to make. They have more of the deli section or refrigerated section. It wraps around the entire outside of the shop, down to the end and then down to the left as well. And this is all the things like yogurts and creams and different things. You can see again how wide the shop is. I think what I might do is do a walk around the outside so you can get an idea of the size of the shop. So they've got a frozen section, so you'll see how much it takes up here. So you've got one aisle and then the other aisle. Okay, just had to switch modes because the LED lights in the fridge are flashing away. And this is one difference I think also with Australia versus Russia, is there is a lot less refrigerated, a lot less frozen items in Russia. Orange juice and just juices in general. And then you come around then to the section that's got all the different types of butters, margarines. And the frozen section, you can get a bit of everything in here. There is some desserts and ice cream. And the ice cream comes in plastic tubs rather than in wrappers, which you might see. And there is more cheese over here. So where we saw cheese at the beginning of the video, that was more like the premium cheeses. Then here is the more everyday brands that you can find in all different supermarkets. Butter as well. And of course, you don't see any anti-theft containers. You don't find anything that's where people can take them or not pay for them. So choices of butter. Plenty of ice cream. If you want to know my favorite brand, and right here, where is it? Where is the macadamia one? Please tell me they have it in stock. Oh my gosh, there it is. Caramel honey macadamia. This one right here. This is one of the best ice creams in Australia. So if you're ever here, go and find Connoisseur ice cream. It's even, I think it's won different awards for the quality of the ice cream. And then ice creams on sticks. And what differs also here is everything's in packaging. So you're not buying single ice creams. You're buying it in packs of 4 or 6 or 10, which makes it a little bit different as well. We come down to bacon. So there is more types of cheese here. Grated cheese. So if you want to put on pizzas, not too sure. And then all of the different types of hams and bacons. Plenty of choices. And then we come to the eggs. Let's check out how many eggs they've got. Or let me say how much they don't have. They've even got notices here that you're only able to buy 2 cartons per person. So they actually have a limit on the amount of eggs that you can buy. And the difference also, these are in packs of 12 versus packs of 10 in Russia. And they've got large, extra large. So 450 rubles for the large eggs. And then they've got mega eggs. Who needs mega eggs? This is about 800 rubles for the large mega pack of eggs. So they're just bigger eggs, I guess. 1,500 birds per hectare. They even tell you how many eggs they've got. Actually, also the place they've come from as well. These are local from the wheat belt area of Western Australia. Might be interesting to have a look at the section with the pet food. This might differ quite a fair bit from how they display it and sell it. They've actually got a refrigerated pet food section here, which is mostly for dogs. So they've got these almost like big sausages that you can get for pet meat. And then over here for the cats. Now, quite a lot of it is actually canned pet food. So you'll see here the metal cans on the bottom shelf down here. And this is probably the difference from what you can do in Russia. Also these little mini cans, whereas in Russia they're all pouched foods that you get for the cats and the dogs. One thing I've noticed also is there is a bias towards more dog food than cat food. Now, because in Russia a lot more people live in apartments and in smaller houses, people tend to have either small dogs and particularly cats. Then again, have you look at the bottom there, all of the canned dog food. So there is some of these like metal serving containers. I've not got the right words in my head. In the last few days since I've been here, I've got so many things going on at the same time that my head is just spinning in circles. And then you see here the canned pet food, these very large metal cans as well. And then the cat food here, so the pouched or the dry biscuits. And then the cans again, so these little small single serve versions. And there is a couple of types of them up the top here where they've got them in these little plastic sachets. But that's it. How interesting is that? And they've even got, I didn't notice this, there's pay by weight pet food as well. Pet treat bar. That's quite interesting. And this one actually you do put your own sticker and get the weight of whatever you've purchased on them just there. Has anybody seen this somewhere else outside of Australia, or am I just seeing this for the first time? So all of these other middle aisles right here are then all of the things like cleaning items and personal care items. So there is one aisle basically dedicated to washing detergents, washing up liquids, cleaning fluids. I think this is fairly similar to what we have in Russia. We do have the box powdered washing detergent and then the liquid ones as well. So this is very normal. I'm not sure if there's more or less if you're looking at things like the tablets for dishwashers. And this is washing up liquid, which is pretty normal. However, the small bottle is 300 rubles. In Russia, you're paying around about 100 rubles, so a bit of a difference in price. They have the aisle here with all of the kids' baby food. So you've got the formula and then these pouches with the plastic top on them, like sippy style drinks. And the one thing I think that is quite different in Australia, if I compare it to Russia, is they've got pharmacy items in the supermarket here. So you can actually buy things like Band-Aids, headache tablets, and basic first aid items. Whereas in Russia, you'd actually have to go to a separate pharmacy or an apteka to do shopping for things like that. So, whereas in Australia, you can just walk in and grab a pack of headache tablets. In Russia, you'd go to a pharmacy and you'd let them know generally what you want or what your ailments are, and they'd sell you something accordingly. And we've got soaps, hand washers. So there is actually people in the shop. Now, I would say it's not particularly full. I guess as a shopping centre, the one thing that's important where I am here, there's one of the biggest shopping centres in Western Australia where I'm actually in right now. So you'll notice people will go and do normal shopping at the shopping centre, then they might come into the supermarket on the way home and do this as their last stop. People won't come and do their supermarket shopping, then walk around with their basket around the whole shopping centre. So we've got here things like dried fruits, dates, sultanas, different things like that. There is a small section of kitchen items. Most people generally wouldn't buy them from supermarkets. They'll go to other department stores. We've got brands like Kmart and Target that you can buy things from. If you need to cook or bake a cake, plenty of products for baking. And we come to sugar. So this is definitely very Australian made. They have the kangaroo right on the front as well, if we miss it. So 270 rubles for the 2 kilos of sugar. And then let's have a look at flour just to get an idea of the price. Actually, I think this will be about the same price if we get the branded one. Also 270 rubles. But there is the supermarket brand here for, it's like 250 rubles. I'm trying to do the exchange rates in my head and it's a little bit too many numbers to keep in mind. And we've got canned fruits. Now you do have a little bit of this in Russia, but not as much as here. However, this is quite important where you see this. So product of Australia doesn't always mean it's entirely Australian product. There is the wording that says made in Australia or product of Australia, where it might use imported ingredients and then packaged locally. So I think I have to walk down the candy aisle, and I'm very curious what you call this depending on where you live in the world. Now, being that I worked in America for a lot of years, we called it candy. And in Australia, we call it lollies. And anything that might be a candy bar or a chocolate bar would be considered lollies. So even things like chewing gum would be lollies, individual chocolate bars would be lollies. And then anything you see on this right-hand side, actually they've got the word treat size here, which is just different size packaging of the items. But lollies on the right-hand side. And then instead of just biscuits, sweet biscuits they have on the sign right there. And here are crackers, rice crackers. So it's really interesting that what we would consider this as a chocolate bar is called lollies here in Australia. Now, the one that my wife really loves is actually from New Zealand. This peanut butter Whittaker's is her absolute favorite one. And then for the Cadbury's right here, so this particular Cadbury's is made in Australia, in Tasmania. I've actually got some branding on it as well. So you can take a bar for your coach or for your teacher, which is a bit interesting. I'm not sure it's a good incentive. I thought you meant to bring an apple to your teacher, not a bar of chocolate. Also here they've got some luxury chocolates and premium ones. And I want to show you probably the most famous biscuit in all of Australia. On the left-hand side here, McVitie's is actually a British brand. We've got Tim Tams. These are the most famous biscuit in all of Australia, and I think there isn't a single Australian who doesn't like Tim Tams. And you can get them in all sorts of flavors now, but the very traditional one here, the double coat, or the original one, I think this, of course, but you can also get salted caramel flavor, strawberries and cream. Too many different choices, either original or double coat. Salted caramel one just there. We'll go down one more aisle, and this is the aisle with chips. Now, depending on where you live, you might call them potato chips, or in England they call them crisps. So let me know again what you might call them. How about some jumpies with the kangaroo right on the front? Pretty sure these are an Australian only thing. Twisties. This makes me smile when I walk around because, of course, I know so many of these products. And then in Russian supermarkets, it's much different to what they have in Australian stores. Also, they've got some of the dilutable drinks right here, so what we call cordial in Australia. So you mix like 1 part juice with, it's like 10 parts water. And the whole aisle of potato chips. Now, do you call them chips, crisps, or potato chips? Let me know which one you actually call it. Also more juice. These like apple juices. And then prune juice. So, what do you think of the shop as I've been walking around? I want you to let me know in the comments what you think of the look of the store and the selection and the choices and what I've shown you and how it compares particularly to Russia for me, to make an example of it, or where you live in the world beyond Australia and Russia. As I head out of the store, I'll just walk past all the registers here. So one thing that's perhaps different or not, now we actually have a very big supermarket that I've walked around, but there's only 8 manned registers or ladied registers. There is only 1 physical register open. I don't think they've ever used these other ones over this side in the years that I worked here. So obviously where you've got the larger basket, you're going to go to the lady and pay. And then they've got the self-checkout over here, which has 12 bays for you to do the self-checkout. Of course, all of the grab-and-go candy right at the entrance or the exit. So you've got 12 self-checkouts that wrap on this middle section, and then only, what is it, 6 registers if they were all open. I think I have to show another couple of well-known Australian items, or very famous Australian items. One being Vegemite, which is just up here on the right-hand side. How could I possibly not come to an Australian supermarket and show Vegemite? So you've got a few different sizes of the packaging right there. And of course, also peanut butter, there's Nutella. But have you had Vegemite before? Please let me know if you've had it or tasted it or not. If you're from England, you might know Marmite as a competing item. Now, I was thinking there'd be more honey to show here, but there's very little honey. But they've got some of these different, like premium ones, plus 50 honey, Manuka honey, Australian marmalade. This is more like a jam. And then these squeezy bottle honeys. And you can also get this one in a kilo jar if you want. And jams, of course, or preserves, they like to call them. What do you think? Have you had Vegemite before? And maybe you've even had Australian honey at some point. As I head outside of the Coles supermarket, the first thing I want to do is say a massive thank you to the staff here for letting me walk around and make the video. And of course, we saw one of the staff members, actually a colleague that I worked together with. I worked here for about 1.5 years, so I know this store intimately, and I don't think there's a single bay or shelf that I haven't touched at some point in the time that I worked there. I was doing merchandising in the shop and rearranging and sorting it out. So it's really nice to come back, and that's why I'm just smiling and happy, and to meet a couple of work friends or colleagues. It was super nice. I really do hope you've enjoyed this walk around and this tour of an Australian typical supermarket. And Coles is essentially the most famous brand for supermarkets in Australia. It's also an Australian company as well, and you can even buy shares in the company if you wanted to. Of course, we all need to eat, so you'll never lose buying shares in Coles. But thank you so much to the staff there. If you are watching this at some point, I appreciate you letting me walk around and hold the camera in the shop for as long as I have. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, post a comment, let me know how this compares to where you live. I did try to point out some of the differences with Russia and Australia, if that's helpful at all to you. The shopping centre is really busy as I'm walking around. Now, if you want to follow me on Telegram, I've got a couple of days left here in Australia. My Telegram channel is right here. You can click that. I will be back in Russia literally in a few days' time, quite literally. But if you want to see another video on the channel, I'll put something different for you to watch. You can keep traveling with Russell. Okay, everybody, I'm off on another adventure. Bye.